I think you have raised a very good question, and I would like to also say it was a wonderful segue because you first mentioned that Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar returned back from Grazing, interrupting his studies when his scholarship ran out, and he had to serve in the court, the royal court of the Maharaja of Baroda. But then he came back, completed his education, and then he became, as we all know, the voice of the voiceless, and used his massive legal knowledge, and not just legal knowledge, but also all his expertise and education and intellect for the uplift of the downtrodden. So the question was how lawyers can become the voice of the voiceless and use their legal knowledge to empower the marginalized people. The answer I can give in two forms. The first is that lawyers can work pro bono. And what that means is that they can do work for the public good. The word pro bono means for the public good. And essentially, what that translates to is that they can work free of cost for the uplift of the marginalized sections of society. I think it's very important for lawyers to put to use their education, their advocacy skills, and also their rights of audience. What I mean by rights of audience is that their right to stand up in the courts of law and be heard, because not everyone has the rights of audience. So as a result, they can put to use all their massive amounts of education that one has to undergo during law studies, also their advocacy skills that makes them public speakers very naturally. And lastly, they can also use their intellect in order to use their rights of audience to better public good. So for me, it's very important that lawyers use their legal knowledge to empower marginalized communities, and not just use their legal knowledge or their profession just to fill their own pockets. You see, the issue right now is that a lot of lawyers are in the profession simply to line their own pockets, simply to earn a lot of money, because no doubt it's a very lucrative position or lucrative profession, or lucrative position to be in. However, it's very important as well to think about the plight and the demands and the needs of the people who are affected by real social ills. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to have lawyers from the marginalized community themselves. And the reason is because it comes very naturally for them to give a voice to the voiceless, to represent their communities without them feeling that it's some kind of a burden, without them feeling it's some kind of an obligation. So I believe that the first way in which to do pro bono work is one of the best ways in which lawyers can give a voice to the voiceless. And the second is by lawyers actually representing marginalized groups in court. Ms. Mridula Devi talked about the rape case that she mentioned that's happened, unfortunately, quite recently. And what she mentioned was that, there is a basic strife or a basic effort to even get these on the FIR system of the police. So for me, it's very important for there to be proactive lawyers who can work amongst the Bahujan and marginalized communities, who can do work pro bono, but also take on these tasks, not just be a lawyer for the sake of being a lawyer, but to perhaps visit the site where the atrocities have taken place, perhaps to help with the entire process in lodging those complaints with the police, and then taking the case on in the courts and delivering justice for the marginalized communities. So for me, it's not just a question of being a professional where one has the rights of audience, one has advocacy skills, one has massive amounts of education to their name, stands up in a court of law and then forgets about the issues. But what's more important to me is that a lawyer who takes on that particular issue as their own issue is what's important. And therefore, I decided, and I very soon realized that the best way to resolve the issues or help resolve the issues of the marginalized communities would be to become a lawyer, a barrister myself, so that it doesn't become a sort of going to some lawyer, going to some influential advocate, and then trying to ask them or begging them to plead the case, but taking on these cases myself and delivering justice to our communities. So one of the best things that we have in our arsenal is that Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar was not just a brilliant advocate and a brilliant economist and a brilliant crusader for social justice, but that he was a man from the very community he was serving. So for me, this personal connection is important. And as you've asked me how lawyers can become the voice of the voiceless, is by doing pro bono work, and secondly, by using their rights of audience for representing the marginalized groups in the courts of law.